Shabbat Shalom. And this is an early morning lesson or class, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Just sharing some stuff. Today is the first Sabbath of the 8th biblical month. It just so happens to have fallen on so-called Saturday, but according to the scripture, Saturday has absolutely nothing to do with the Sabbath or with the feast days of the Most High. So I just want to go into scripture and I want to show, make a couple of points in reference to that and show that first and foremost, like I said, is no way possible that the Sabbath has ever been on Saturday, and also that I'll show that is also dispel the evening to evening and show that evening to evening is also false doctrine, and that a biblical day does not start in the evening. And also I want to show as well is that the Sabbath is celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day, as Hamashiach said in John 11 verse 9. So I'll get started. I'm started Exodus 20 verse 8, and it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th is the Sabbath of Yahuwah thy Lord. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. So the Sabbath was given to, this is the law. This was given to us on Mount Sinai when Moses went up for 40 days and 40 nights when they left out of Egypt. And what you'll see is that the very first place that the Sabbath was instituted for man was actually in Exodus 31. Now I know in Exodus 16 he gives us the format as far as 6 days do thou labor and do all our work, as far as the prep day rather, and showing us the dates as the Sabbath there as well as the prep day. But the first time, and that was to prove Israel in the wilderness. But the first time that the Sabbath was actually commanded to man was in Exodus 31. So we'll go forward to that point, and then I'll go backwards and show, like I said, that there's no way possible that the Sabbath was ever on Saturday. So Exodus 31, get verse 31, verse 13 and 14. And I'm going to try to do this quick. I always say it's a quick early morning Shabbat, but you know, where the Ruach leads, and we'll go and just make the points that need to be made for this. So Exodus 31, I'm going to start at verse 12. It says, and Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you. So the keeping the Sabbath is a sign between the Most High and the children of Israel. So a sign is an identifying feature. So when we keep the true Sabbath of the Most High, we are lining ourselves up with what's taking place in the Shamayim. And I'll prove that later on in the scriptures. But it says, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generation, that ye may know that I am Yahuwah that doeth sanctify you. So when we keep the true Sabbath of the Most High, and the true Sabbath, when I say the true Sabbath, I mean according to Genesis 1:14, that is the calendar of the Most High. That is the only way to keep all of the feast days listed in Leviticus 23 to include the weekly Sabbath. So when he says it, that he will sanctify you, the way to be sanctified, meaning set apart, is to keep it according to how the Most High has given it to us. So like I said, this is going forward. So I'm gonna go backwards, and I want to show something and show that it could never have been on Saturday. So we'll go into the book of Jubilees for those that subscribe to Jubilees, but for those that don't, you'd have to show that Jubilees is showing some type of contradiction as far as the scriptures is concerned. And if it's not, then we have to conclude that it is lining up with the 66 books. So it says that the Sabbath was a sign, right? So I'm going to pick it up. This is Jubilees chapter 2 and verse 17. It says, and he gave us a great sign, the Sabbath day. So keeping the Sabbath of the Most High, according to Genesis 1:14, is a great sign, right? So it says that we should work 6 days, but keep the Sabbath on the seventh day from all work. Verse 18, and all the angels of the presence and the angels of the sanctification, these two classes he have hidden us to keep the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth. So this is two classes or two classifications of angels. It says the angels of the presence and the angels of the sanctification. And it says he's hidden them and commanded them to keep the Sabbath with him in the heaven and on earth. So right here, this is the Most High commanding the angels to keep the Sabbath. So you have to ask yourself, just based on this verse alone, is there a Gregorian calendar on the wall in heaven? That's a legitimate question. Because for those that say that the Sabbath is Saturday, well, you have to understand that the Gregorian calendar was made in 1582 by Pope Gregory the 13th, or whoever he was. And Saturday, the days of the week go along with that particular calendar. So if this is where he's talking about he's keeping the Sabbath in the heavens, then how are they doing so? Because there's no Gregorian calendar on the wall in the heaven, right? So that's a legitimate question there. Verse 19 says, and he said unto us, behold, I will separate unto myself a people from among all people, and these will keep the Sabbath day, and I will sanctify them unto myself as my people, and I will bless them, and as I have sanctified the Sabbath day, and do sanctify it unto myself, even so I will bless them, and they will be my people, and I shall be their allure. Right? Verse 20, and I have chosen the seed of Jacob from among all that I have seen, and have written down him as my firstborn son, and have sanctified him unto myself forever and ever. And I will teach them the Sabbath, that they may keep the Sabbath thereupon from all work. So the people that he's setting apart is Israel. Deuteronomy, that lines up with Deuteronomy 7:6. That he set he sanctified a special people unto himself above everybody else. So this is who he's talking about. And he gave the law, statutes, and commandments to Israel. And it says he have not dealt so with any other nation. But it says right here that he would teach them to keep the Sabbath with them in the Shamaim, with him and the angels of the presence and the angels of the sanctification. So right here, that's another point that's telling you that the Sabbath cannot be on Saturday, because he's saying he's going to teach them, and then also the angels are keeping it in heaven. And that takes us back to, let me get a quick precept for that, Isaiah 66, because it was kept in the heaven. And Isaiah 66 and verse 23, and this is future prophecy. So it says, Isaiah 66:23, it says, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come and worship before me, saith Yahuwah. So the Sabbath was never kept on Saturday in the scripture. It was never kept in that, and we see that it was kept in the heavens right here before it was made known to man. And then we see in the future prophecy that it's going to also be kept. So again, there's not going to be, and there never was a Gregorian calendar in heaven where the angels are standing around looking at the calendar and saying, oh, tomorrow's Thursday, and then Friday, and then Saturday is the Sabbath. That's impossible, right? So verse 21 says, and thus he created therein a sign in accordance with which they should keep the Sabbath with us on the seventh day, to eat, to drink, and to bless him who have created all things, as he has blessed and sanctified unto himself a peculiar people above all people, just like Deuteronomy 7:6 says. And and that they should keep the Sabbath together with us. So this is before man was even created, and they're keeping the Sabbath in the heavens. So he says he's going to set apart a peculiar people, which is Israel, which is Jacob, and he's going to teach them to keep the Sabbath with him. So it says he created therein a sign in accordance. A sign in accordance. And I had the definition for accordance because I want to make sure that we know what accordance means. Accordance. Y'all bear with me because it's early in the morning. Accordance means to confirm or to ensure, right? So he says he created therein a sign in accordance, right? So let me get that real quick. Sirach 43, because the scripture says precept must be upon precept. So he said he created a sign, right? Sirach 43 and verse 6. It says, he made the moon also to serve in her season for declaration of times and a sign of the world. So the Sabbath itself is a sign which sanctifies us, those that keep it, according to his calendar, Genesis 1:14. The Sabbath itself is a sign. But he said he's going to give man, he's going to set man apart, and then he's going to give man a sign that man knows that when the Sabbath is taking place. And that sign is the moon, right? Verse 7 says, from the moon is a sign of feast, a light that decreases in her perfection. So precept must be upon precept. So it says from the moon is a sign of feast. So when we go over to Leviticus 23, and we're going to pick it up, Leviticus 23, I'm going to pick it up at verse 1. And it says, because it said from the moon is a sign of feast, right? So when we go over to Leviticus 23, it says, verse 1, it says, and Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast. So these are all of the feasts listed in Leviticus 23. It says, of the feast of Yahuwah, which he shall proclaim to be holy convocation. Even these are my feasts. So right here, the very first feast listed in Leviticus 23, it says 6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th is the Sabbath of rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. So right here, Jubilees is lining up with what Leviticus 23 is saying, because he said he's going to give, he created a sign wherein they would be able to keep the Sabbath. Let me read that again. Jubilees chapter 2, and I'm picking it back up at verse 21. And thus he created therein a sign in accordance with which they should keep the Sabbath with us on the 7th day, right? To eat and to drink and to bless him who have created all things, and has blessed and sanctified unto himself a peculiar people above all peoples that should keep the Sabbath together with us. So as we line ourselves up with the true Sabbath of the Most High, which is determined by the calendar, which is Genesis 1:14, he gave us a sign, and the sign is the moon. And when you go into the word seasons of feast, that's Strong's Concordance 4150, which is Moedim, which means appointed times. So he gave us the moon for the appointed times, right? I want to get another precept. Psalms 104 and verse 19. Just to back up what we just read from Sirach 43, verse 6 and 7. So Psalms 104 and verse 19, and it reads, he appointed the moon for seasons, the sun knows his going down. So it says he appointed, or he made the moon for his appointed times, which is in Leviticus 23. So that's just precept upon precept. And the precept says that let everything be established in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. So that's 2 witnesses, 2 or 3 witnesses right there. That's telling you that the sign that he created to determine the Sabbath is the moon. So, you know, people try to discredit the lunar Sabbath, but when you really understand these scriptures, it's telling you exactly what it is. We just have to have faith and believe what the Most High is saying. But I want to make another 2 more points from here, and I'm gonna move forward. So verse 26, Jubilees 2, verse 26, it says, "Wherefore do thou command the children of Israel to observe this day, and to keep it holy, and do therein and do not any work therein, and not defile it, as it is holier than all other days." So the true Sabbath of the Most High is holier than all other days. The Sabbath is even holier than New Moon Day. New Moon Day is very significant because you cannot have a Sabbath without first establishing the month. And the moon establishes the month with New Moon Day. And that's Numbers 10:10 and Sirach 43 and verse 8. The month is called after her name. So before you can have a Sabbath, you have to have a New Moon Day. And the other point is that the Gregorian calendar is a solar only calendar. So if it doesn't show the luminary, which is the moon, then there's no way you can keep any of the feast days listed in Leviticus 23 on that particular calendar, because it does not represent the moon aspect. It is a solar only calendar, and it's 365 days, and Enoch tells us that the year is determined in 364 days. So that's another point where the Sabbath could not be on Saturday on the Gregorian calendar. It just wouldn't line up. So verse 30, and this is I like this verse right here. It says, "And they shall not bring in nor take out of their house from house to house on that day, for that day is more holy and blessed than any jubilee day or of jubilees. On this we kept the Sabbath in heaven before it was made known to any flesh to keep the Sabbath therein upon the earth." So right here he's saying they kept the Sabbath in the Shamaim, in the heaven, before it was made known to any flesh on the earth. So Pope Gregory the 13th would be a part of any flesh on the earth, and he created that calendar in 1582. So if it says right here that they kept the Sabbath in heaven before it was made known to any flesh, that would include Jacob as well. That would include Israel, because in Psalms 147 verse 19 and 20 he say, "He showeth his word unto Jacob, his law, statutes, and commandments to Israel. He have not dealt so with any other nation." Well, Pope Gregory the 13th would fall into the category of any other nation. So if nobody was here at this time and they kept it, the angels, verse 18, "And all the angels of the presence and all the angels of the sanctification, these 2 classes he have hidden us to keep the Sabbath with him in heaven and on earth." So the angels are keeping it, and the angels keep it, right? So every time we keep the Sabbath according to the luminaries, according to Genesis 1:14, we are lining ourselves up with what's taking place in the Shamaim. And that's scripture as well, because it says, "Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven." So when we line ourselves up and we keep the true Sabbath of the Most High, we're lining ourselves up with what's taking place in the Shamaim. And like I said, today is the first Sabbath, not because it's Saturday. It's the first Sabbath because the New Moon Day established the month, and 7 days later it brings us to today, which is the first Sabbath of the 8th biblical month. So today, those that are keeping the Sabbath according to the calendar of the Most High we're lining ourselves up with what's taking place in the Shamaim. And if you're keeping Saturday, if Saturday is the reason that you're keeping Saturday on the Gregorian calendar, by default, you're keeping the Sabbath, and you're lining yourself up with what's taking place in the Shamaim, only because you're keeping it on Saturday, and only because the new moon fell on this particular day 7 days ago. So by default, if you're keeping the Gregorian calendar Saturday Sabbath, you are lining yourself up with what's taking place in the Shamayim by default. So those that are keeping it according to Genesis 1:14, we are keeping it, and the sign, like I said, he gave us a sign in accordance. The sign is the moon. So we're keeping it according to the luminaries, right? So I just want to make another point, because I said the Sabbath is celebrated during the daylight hours. So I want to go there too and show you when the temple was open. Ezekiel 46, and let me see, this is 20 minutes. Oh, 20 minutes, that's not bad. It's still short. 20 minutes and I'm halfway done. So I just want to show the hours of operation of when the temple was open. So this is Ezekiel 46, and I'm starting at verse 1. It says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days. But on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open." So right here, these are the 3 types of days on the calendar of the Most High. You have new moon day being the beginning or the starting point of every month. Before you can have a Sabbath, you must have 6 working days. Just like it says in Exodus 20, verse 9 and 10, 6 days do thou labor and do all thy work, and the 7th is the day of rest. And then you see the Sabbath day. So these are your 3 types of days: the new moon, the 6 working days, and the Sabbath days, right? So it says right here that during the 6 working days, it says the gate that looketh toward the east shall be shut or closed. But it says, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. So even right here, you never see in scripture a scripture that says Sabbath night, Sabbath evening. You never see new moon night, new moon evening. Yet there's a day and an evening to every biblical day, because evening simply means sunset. And I'm gonna put that in the comments below to show the Strong's Concordance what evening means. But evening means sunset or night. So evening is sunset, and it's immediately followed by 12 hours of darkness called night. That's what it means. It doesn't mean the starting point of a day. So verse 2 says, "And the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate without, and shall stand at the post of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offerings and his peace offerings, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate, and they shall not go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening." So the gate is open in the day of the new moon and in the Sabbath day. And it says it should not be shut or closed until the evening, because evening simply means sunset. So when the gate is shut, it is in the evening. It's time for people to go home, because, you know, like I said before on previous videos, there's no electricity in the Bible. So as the sun goes down and the gate is shut, it's time to go home, because the day is over. And that's why Hamashiach says in John 11 and 9, is it but 12 hours in the day? Absolutely. He's talking about the light portion of the day. A complete biblical day, like the word evening means, is sunset and night. So a complete biblical day is 12 hours of light called day and 12 hours of darkness called night. A complete biblical day is 24-hour period at the rising of the sun. That's when the next day starts. Evening does not mean the starting point of the day. And I said I was going to prove that as well. But to go on with this point to show that when the Sabbath takes place, verse 4, Ezekiel 46 and verse 4, it says, verse 3, "Likewise the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before Yahuwah in the Sabbaths and in the new moons, and the burnt offerings that the prince shall offer unto Yahuwah in the Sabbath day shall be 6 lambs without blemish, and a ram without blemish." So it's talking about the Sabbath day, right? Verse 6 says, "And in the day of the new moon it shall be a young bullock without blemish, 6 lambs and a ram, and they shall be without blemish." So you see, again, it's talking about the Sabbath day and the new moon day, right? So this is when it's open. So I'm gonna show that Hamashiach adhered to these rules and regulations as well. Luke 4 and verse 16, I want to get real quick first. Luke 4 and 16. Luke 4:16, it says, "And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went in into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read." So he went in on the Sabbath day, the 12 hours of light called day, right? Another precept upon precept. John 18 and verse 20. And y'all go back and look at these scriptures for yourself. Like I gotta put my disclaimer out there. I could be wrong, but that means that you have to go back and search the scriptures and see if it's wrong, because we don't know what's wrong if we don't know what's right. Right? So John 18 verse 20, it says, Hamashiach answered him, "I spake openly to the world," meaning Israel. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews also resort, and in secret I said nothing. So it says he came into the synagogue and taught in the temple. And Luke 4:16 said, as his custom was, right? So let's see when the temple was open. Just another precept. Acts 5 and verse 21. Like I said before, man, we don't need to make up anything. All we have to do is know where these scriptures line up and know the address to go to where we need to be. And it's going to give us the understanding. That's why it says through thy precepts you get understanding. Therefore you hate every false way. So once we know these precepts, and the main thing too, other than the precepts, is you have to rightly divide this word. If you don't rightly divide this word, you're going to come up with all kind of false doctrines. You're going to come up with Saturday Sabbath. You're going to come up with evening to evening, and none of that can be found in Scripture. It can't be substantiated. So Acts chapter 5 verse 21. Let's see when they came in, because we already saying the Sabbath day and the new moon day. Acts chapter 5 verse 21. And when they heard that they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught. So they entered into the temple early in the morning and taught, right? So this is precept upon precept. So they went in early in the morning and taught, right? So I said earlier that was also going to show that the evening is not the starting point of a day. So let's go, since we're talking about the Sabbath, and today is the first Sabbath of the 8th biblical month, let's go into Scripture and show Hamashiach further teaching on the Shabbat. And let's see if, when the evening came, if it was a change of day. Mark chapter 3. Mark chapter 3, and we'll start at verse 1. And he entered into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand. And they watched him, talking about the Pharisees, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. So we already looked at Acts chapter 5 verse 21. It says they entered into the synagogue early in the morning. So right here it says, and they watched him whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. Verse 3. And he say unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he said unto them, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath day, or to do evil, to save life, or to kill? But they held their peace. They didn't answer. He checked them on that. He said, is it lawful or not? You know what I'm saying? So right here, so verse 7 in context, it says, but Hamashiach withdrew himself with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea. So it says he withdrew, meaning he left. And when he left, his disciples went with him, and also a great multitude, right? So to keep it in context, we're going to pick this up in Mark chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, and he began to teach by the seaside, and there was gathered unto him a great multitude. So this is the same multitude from Mark chapter 3 that we just read. It says there was gathered unto him a great multitude, so that he entered into a ship and sat in the sea. So he went into the ship, but he was teaching from the dock of for the ship. Right, so it says it sat in the sea, and the whole multitude was by the sea on the land. And he taught them many things by parables, and said unto them in his doctrines. So clearly we see that this is the Sabbath day, and we see that Hamashiach is teaching, right? So to pick it up in context, I'm going to drop down to verse 35. And this is the Sabbath day, like it said at the top of Mark chapter 3. So this says, and the same day when the evening was come, he say unto them, let us pass over to the other side. So right here, for those that say a biblical day starts in the evening, this is Hamashiach clearly teaching on the Sabbath day. And when the evening comes, the scripture says, and the same day when the evening was come. So that means that the evening came right here. And it still calls it the same day. And when you look at the definition of what the word same means, it means identical, not different. So it says, and the same day when the evening was come, he say unto them, let us pass over to the other side. So this is Hamashiach. So this is proof that the Sabbath is celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day, just like we read in Ezekiel 46, just like we're reading right here in Mark chapter 3. And then we're picking it up in Mark chapter 4. It's celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. When the evening comes, the Sabbath portion is over, just like it said in Ezekiel 46, that the gate would not be shut until the evening because it's sunset. The people have to go home because it's getting ready to be dark. There's no electricity in the Bible. So it says the gate would not be shut until the evening. Now it says, in the same day when the evening was come, he say unto them, let us pass over to the other side. So the reason why he said let us pass over to the other side can be found in Jubilees chapter 50. And let's pick that up as well. Jubilees 50. And I'm going to start at verse 12. And for those that read Jubilees, go back and read the entire chapter of Jubilees 50. It gives you greater understanding as to what can be done on the Sabbath and what shouldn't be done. But I just want to make the point of why Hamashiach waited to the evening and said, let us pass over. So Jubilees 50 and verse 12, it says, and every man who doeth any work thereon, or goeth on a journey, or tilleth his farm, whether in his house or any other place, and whosoever lighteth a fire, or rideth upon any beast, or travel by a ship on the sea, or whosoever striketh or killeth anything, or slaughtereth a beast or a bird, or whoever catcheth any animal, or a bird or a fish, or whosoever fasteth upon the fasteth or maketh war on the Sabbath, the man that do any of these things on the Sabbath shall die. So the children of Israel shall observe the Sabbath according to the commandments regarding the Sabbaths of the land, as it is written on the tables, which he gave in the hands that should write upon the laws of the seasons, and the seasons according to the division of the days. So when Hamashiach says, when it says in Mark 4 verse 35, and the same day at evening, he say unto them, let us pass over to the other side, being that he was on the ship. Like it says in verse 12 right here, he that traveled by ship. So if the Sabbath, this is proven that the Sabbath portion is only celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. Because if it continues on, would be breaking the Sabbath. And that's not possible. So this is proven that the Sabbath is celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. So I just want to bring out this point here and just show this. And when you go into Mark chapter 16, it's going to show you that the next biblical day does not start until the rising of the sun. So the Sabbath is celebrated during the 12 hours of light called day. But a complete biblical day starts at the rising of the sun. And the very next day after every Sabbath is the first day of the week, meaning the first of your 6 work days. So Mark chapter 16 says, and when the Sabbath was passed, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Solomon had both sweet spices that they would come to anoint him. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came to the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. So a complete biblical day is a 24-hour period, and the next day starts at the rising of the sun. So it's showing that the Sabbath could never be on Saturday, and that a biblical day is not evening to evening. So I just wanted to do this quick video, and it's 34 minutes, so that's not bad. A quick video just to give some edification on the Shabbat. And for all those that are keeping the Sabbath today according to Genesis 1:14, Shabbat Shalom, and it's about it's not about convenience. Saturday may be convenience, but it's convenient, but it's not about convenience. It's about obedience. So for those keeping it according to Genesis 1:14, Shabbat Shalom. For those that are keeping Saturday Sabbath, I used to keep it at one point. So there's no pointing a finger at anybody. I kept it at one point. I also believe even in the evening. But when the Most High revealed it to me in His Word, like the Scripture said, I made haste and delayed not to keep the commandments. So if He set this day apart and it's more holier than any other day, then this might be something that you might want to reconsider, take a second look at, because if you're keeping Saturday as your Sabbath, you are not keeping the Sabbath of the Most High. The only time you're keeping it, keeping the Sabbath of the Most High is like this month right here, that the Sabbath just happens to fall on Saturday. So by default, you're keeping it. Other than that, outside of that, you're not keeping the Sabbath. When I was keeping Saturday Sabbath, I thought I was keeping the Sabbath, and I wasn't. So this is something to reconsider. Go back and look at it and see what the scriptures say. And like I said, with this video and any other video I do, go back and look at the scriptures and see if it's so. So with that, I say Shabbat Shalom. Y'all have a blessed day, and Shalom. Shalom.